We're live. Welcome
What
to the
is
Cooler
up?
Heads podcast. We have Chris on this morning. How are we doing this morning, buddy?
I am tired, but I am okay. So it was a long day yesterday, just shuttling my daughter around, teenage life. So, but I'm happy to be that parent. So, like my wife and I were talking about it yesterday because we took my daughter like 45 minutes in the opposite direction of our house with her for like 4 of her friends and dropped them off so they could hang out all night.
Yeah.
And then we waited 4.5 hours and then had to pick them up at like 10 o'clock. And we're driving home, and my wife and I are just listening to them have conversations in the back of the car. And while I was thinking about this interview we were going to do in podcasts and stuff, and then I was like, man, I'm tired. I got to get up early, but I'm trying to put myself in the headspace where I'm thankful that I get that time with my daughter because she's 16 and, she's going to be driving soon. And it's like, and then I'm not going to ever see her again,
Well, they do say that like you get 85% of your time with your child between the ages of 0 and 18. Once that happens, you're not going to see them but 15% of the rest of their life. You know what I mean? And life is just busy anymore. You know what I mean? Like, fuck, dude, Bill, right now, I mean, with what you're dealing with, you're actually in a house now, right? You're in your own house. You're not living in a rotel motel.
Not in a van down by the river anymore, no. But I mean, this house is great and all, but I still don't have internet. So, I mean, I've contemplated just burning it down for insurance money. Wait,
you gotta wait for the insurance to kick in. I think you gotta wait 30 days, bro.
It's funny. It's funny that you dropped the Chris Farley reference because I was talking. We have an intern that works with us in the HR training department, and I made a Farley reference, and the blank stare I got off of her face, I'm like, I looked at her in the Teams meeting, and I was like, "You don't know who the fuck I'm talking about, do you?" She's like, "No." I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm so old." I mean, because Farley died, what? How many years ago? 20 years.
So old.
Yeah. That was like late 90s, right?
I don't even know.
I don't think it was 2000s, was it?
I was thinking like 2000.
Maybe right around 2000.
I don't know. I can't remember. I'm so old. That got me thinking about. So, going back to what you were talking about, how you only spend like 15% of your child's life with your in our adult years anyway. Think about this. It's kind of a thing that I was thinking about a couple weeks ago.
Oh, Bill, your hand, that's horrible.
I remember my grandpa.
Oh,
I fucking hate my life sometimes.
It's coming and going.
Nothing.
It's there now.
Well, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah,
this is going to be awesome for our media empire.
Yes. It seems to work fine when you just make short statements with a space in between. So just short statement, give it about 5 seconds, then another short statement.
I understand now why Kevin is so mad all
there you go. He's gone. He's out.
There's a number one reason why we don't why Kevin doesn't record.
Yeah. That's crazy. I don't understand. Bill was there. He is, but now his avatar's not there.
Practice my swan dive.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Bill's just there to say.
I don't know if you guys can even hear.
I agree. That's that. You've got 4 statements. I agree. No, and I disagree. That's all you can say, bro. Nothing else, because your thing won't let you.
Fucking bullshit.
That came through.
He totally didn't listen to what I had to say. Typical of my life.
Oh shit! Hit the cough button. Sorry. Bill, can you hear us yet or no?
I can hear you. I apparently can't talk for very long.
Oh wait, now it's coming in clear. So, Grandpa, back to Grandpa.
Holy shit! This is gonna be a long story. Okay, let's try this again before my internet cuts out because I think there's a cloud moving over top of my house. So, I remember my grandpa, but I have no clue. Like my great grandpa, or my great grandpa rather. I no idea. My great grandma, like I met her once when I was like 4 or something ridiculous,
Mhm.
and I barely remember her. I've barely even seen pictures of her. And think about this, like that was only like 2 generations ago. So think about this: in 2 generations, your great grandchildren might not even know you've ever existed. They won't know any picture. They won't see any pictures of you. They won't remember you physically ever interacting with you. Maybe a few stories, but like I guess in our cases, there's always YouTube. But I don't know. I just thought about that the other day as my grandma was showing me pictures and things. I was like, man, that's kind of sad. Like I don't have any recollection of hearing about them, hearing stories, pictures, nothing.
Well, I would say that make an impression. Make an impression on your kids, be prevalent in your kids' lives, and then in hopes that you get to be prevalent in their children's lives, and just make that impression. Be that person that's not a jerk. So that way
Or
they don't want to forget you.
do something so crazy that it just goes down in history, like rob a bank
Are
or
we
something
talking
that,
like Jeffrey Dahmer shit or what?
I mean, well, no, because then you'll just, yeah, I mean, yeah, that would work too. Yeah, I'm not opposed to that. Yeah.
You- my you know, I told you guys, so my older daughter's been at a camp up in Oklahoma because she was going through some stuff. She wanted to hurt herself at the end of the school year, and she just, you know, she has what's called trichotillomania, so she has the compulsion to pull out her hair and her eyebrows and her eyelashes, and it's an anxiety thing. It's, you know, comparable to biting your nails. It's just more extreme because you can, you know, physically see that you have no hair. And so she's been up in Oklahoma for the past 3.5 months, and you know, my middle child now has been getting all of my annoying attention, you know, because I try to be funny dad. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
try to be fun, try to be enjoyable. But the other day, she's like, Dad, she's on her phone. I'm bothering the shit out of her. I put a ice pop down in the back of her shirt or something like that just to piss her off. And she's like, Dad, right now, you're at a 12. You need to be at a 6.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree. You're like the Van Wilder dad, it sounds like.
I try to be. I try to be like, you know, my kids have a really eclectic music taste. Like, I don't know, anything from like bluegrass or whatever. So, my or actually, you know, my middle one went over to a friend's house, and her dad says to me, she listens to Dolly Parton. I said, yeah, why? She's like, all of a sudden it came on the radio and she's just screaming out, you know, 9 to 5, you know, just bashing it out. I'm like, yeah. So, like I said, so my middle one's just kind of tired of me right now because, you know, she's getting all the focus of the attention. Because my youngest one, my son, who's you know, 5, he really doesn't like me. If he had his choice, he'd go back in utero. This is one thing I want to know if this happens to you guys. So my son, I could be sitting right next to him. We're sitting on the couch, hanging out together, watching TV, and he's like, "Hold on, I have to ask mom something." So I'm thinking that it has to be something prevalent. It has to be something prevalent, right? To you know, mom. That's why he's going over there. And all of a sudden, I hear from the back, wherever he goes to find my wife, Dad's right next to you. He can make you a fucking sandwich. I don't know what it is. Like, he doesn't ever want to ask me for anything. Probably, like I said, probably because he doesn't like me.
I wouldn't say that it's because he doesn't like you. Kids are all different, man. They, you know, I mean, I don't have vast experience and I'm not an expert in anything, but each kid is different. And, you know, sometimes they can bond with different parents more than the other. There's times that, like, I guess I can get that whole imposter syndrome feeling as a parent because my kids are like, you know, mom's going to take me here, mom's going to take me there. But, you know, the whole parenting thing in general is a team effort. So if your wife is able to help him do that, the way that I look at it is because of the partnership that we have, and because I go to work and make her capable of spending the time with the kids. So I'm just thankful that she's there to do it. And I try not to dwell on it. I mean, I understand what you're saying though, because there's times when you're like, damn, dude, you know, like I come home and I hope to be, I don't know, this is weird sounding, but you hope to be praised, you hope to be whatever, and you don't get it, you know. I guess it's, you know, I just look at it as, you know what, my kids are happy, my kids are healthy, and I'm 50% of the reason why they're happy and they're healthy. So I can just be thankful for that.
No, I just think he's a mama's boy.
But I do want to touch on something you were talking about, the anxiety, because, maybe I'm dumb or whatever, but for the longest time, I didn't understand what anxiety was. And I suffer from it severely.
Yeah, me neither. I still
I-
don't really understand.
But I figured it out, though. I figured out that feeling that I've had my entire life where my stomach is twisting up in knots when I'm stressed out and I'm overthinking everything and I'm thinking of every possible outcome, because I guess you can call me a pessimist too, because I always assume the worst. So that way I don't get disappointed, because disappointment just kills me. But I didn't
So
realize
you
that I
think
had
that's
anxiety.
anxiety, Chris?
No, that twisting feeling in my stomach of constantly not knowing what's going to happen. And then in a stressful situation, just my stomach's just in knots and I'm crippled because I know of all the service calls that I have tomorrow. And I'm just so upset and angry. And then I've got guys doing service calls and they're not answering my phone call. And it's just all building, and I just feel like I'm getting smushed down. Like, but I didn't realize that I had it.
Damn
Yeah.
it, Bill.
Yeah, you're gone.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
No.
Now you're
Yep.
back.
You're back now.
Okay.
And
No, you're out, dude. Your thing's dead.
about the anxiety. So Bill and I talked.
My finger through my eye into my brain.
We heard that. Bill and I were talking last night because I was just making sure we were all set up for this morning, and one of the things I had realized, I just had this realization like I think 2 days ago, where before, when I was out on the road all the time, when I was working a shit ton of hours out in the field, I was alone with my thoughts and alone with I could think through things and then kind of walk through things and figure out why I was upset about things. But now, having the job that I have now, I'm on conference calls all day, contacting everybody all day. And then by the end of the day, I want nothing to do with anybody. And it's affected my relationship with my wife. It's affected my relationship with my kids. And even like professionally, like, last week I talked to Kevin, I think twice out of the whole week, you know what I mean? And I was like, man, I just can't do it. Like, I have no more, mental bandwidth for anything after that point. So, I mean, that's something hard that I've had to deal with. And it's anxiety driven, you know what I mean? Like, I get worked up and, I'm a lot like you, Chris, where like, I dig when things are complete. And in the corporate world, nothing is ever complete. And it always has to go through 500 different people before, a thought, is completed. You there, Bill?
No. You said when things are complete, and I feel like nothing is ever complete in my life. I feel like there's always something more. And it's just, I don't know. I'm trying to find peace with that. I'm trying to find peace with the fact that I don't know what next week's going to hold. I don't know what a month later is going to hold. We were just talking about upcoming events at the end of the year that we have to go to for videos and podcasts and different things like that. Yeah. And I have no idea, like, if I'm going to go, right? I'm about to shell out a bunch of money. Maybe, and that sucks. Like, and I'm trying to find peace with that, because I know that, okay, if we get a self-help person on here, they're going to say, well, but you need to do it. You need to make it happen. Fuck you. Like, it doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. Not in a person that has what I consider to be crippling anxiety. I've had to come to terms with people that have solutions for me that just make no absolute fucking sense. Like, that's not going to happen, and in my head, I'm an overthinker, and I don't know if you do this, and I'm not trying to change the subject, but I have this thing where I overthink everything to the point that I finally have to stop thinking about it. But I've planned it out in my head. Let's say I'm doing a job or something like that, and I've got it all planned out in my head, and then I'll go onto the job, and one of my guys will say, hey man, why don't we do it like this? And I'm like, no. And he's like, well, why not? And I go, I don't know, but I know that won't work because I already figured this out. I've already got it in my head and I know my way is going to work. Well, I don't know, man. Let's do it this way. And it's not just my guys, just in general. Like, I think everything way ahead to the point that and I think I hurt myself and I hurt my friends and my family when they're like, hey, let's do it like this. And I'm like, no, because I already figured this out. And I don't remember why, but I know that I figured this out. Am I just an asshole?
No, you're very controlling on things. You know what I mean?
And I hate that. I don't want to be controlling. The irony is that I'm also, as I'm getting older, I'm learning to let things go. Right. But when I let them go, I let them go to the point that my wife's like, hey, what do you think about this? And I'm like, I don't have an opinion about that. I don't even want to start thinking about that. Like, I'm able to just shut it off. But that also makes her upset because she's like, well, you know, how come you don't talk about this stuff? Or why aren't you helping? And it's like, because I physically can't, because I know in my mind, if I start thinking about that, I'm going to control it. And I don't want to control it. I just want to be a passenger. I just want to be part of the process and not have to think that. So I'm able to shut things off, but then I also go the polar opposite.
Well, I mean, so are you that way with family stuff and work stuff?
It's getting there.
Yeah.
It's getting there.
See, family stuff, I'm just like, you know, plan it out. Just do it. The only stipulations is wherever we're going, I'm driving, because when we drive down the road, it sounds like we have a sound system in the car and it's just me just stamping on the fictitious brake pedal on the passenger side. So we're not dying because, you know, she's driving to New York for so long, and I don't like driving with her. So
I'd say the one thing though, the one important thing that I do have to say is, and I wanted to bring it up when you were talking earlier, is I do communicate with my wife, because I realized for a long time that there was a disconnect between us. And so I do communicate these thoughts with her. Like, hey, I'm sorry that I'm not planning this, but I just I know that I don't want to get involved in the planning because I know how much I'm going to overthink everything. And I just want to let things roll. And there's a vacation we did many, many years ago where we were driving up the coast to her dad's house, my wife's dad's house. And we decided, hey, let's not go home for a week. We had nothing. Work was fine. I was like, we're not going to go home for a week. And we're just going to drive down the coast, staying in hotels with no plans. It was one of the most expensive vacations we ever had, and frustrating at times because you pull up to a hotel and they're like, we're booked up. Okay, I guess we'll drive down the road and try to find another one. But it was the most liberating thing for me because there was absolutely no plans. We got to a hotel and said, hey, let's stay here for 2 nights. Okay. Hey, let's stay here for 3 nights. But there was no plans. And it was the best vacation I've ever had in my life because I didn't plan it. I didn't think about it. We just rolled with it.
You're not giving yourself a timeline or anything like that. Well, see, we were something comparable to that. We planned a trip out to South Carolina, and we ended up not going only because, you know, some family stuff going on. But, you know, basically, she's like, well, what do you want to do? I was like, let's plan something. So we were going to be there for 5 days. I said, let's plan something for 3 out of the 5 days. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I said, because there's going to be a day where the kids had enough or someone gets sunburnt, and then we can just do nothing but just relax in front of the television, you know, because the house that we the Airbnb'd, it was basically right on the beach. So, you know, if we wanted to go out, we could. If we didn't want to do anything, we didn't have to. You know what I mean? But that's why, like, I leave those. But I'd rather leave and be on vacation longer and just have, you know, 1 or 2 days just to settle out, not do jack shit. And not because, I mean, usually by the time you get back from a vacation, I'm more stressed.
You're ready for another vacation.
Yeah, fuck. Because, yes. Like, you know, at that point, not only did you have a stressful, because everything was planned and concise, we want to make sure we jam as much fucking fun in this thing as possible. And then you get home and you're like, oh my God, work's piled up. I have so much shit I gotta do. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, like, right now, I have like over 100 hours of vacation. Why? Because I don't take any time off. Why? Because, like, I'm like, well, I got to get this done. I got to get this done. I got to get this done. So, like, you know, like AHR and you know, the HVAC school symposium down in Florida. I mean, that's going to be like my own mini vacation. But even that, by the time I get back, I'm like, I'm in a corner. I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to talk to anyone because you're oversaturated with just input. You know what I mean?
And I experienced that with you a couple times now because for the audience, you know, we've kind of known each other on social media for a while now, but we met for the first time. I think you came out to my house. A random ass dude just knocks on my door one day and is like, hey man, can I come be on your live stream? No, but I mean, you know, we got to hang out at AHR and we got to hang out at the symposium, and I got to see what you're talking about. And it's a trip. It is a trip, but everybody's different, man, but you definitely struggle when you're around big crowds, especially when you have to make conversation. And the interesting thing, psychoanalyze you, is that you are the life of the conversation, right? You are the person that people want to talk to, yet it messes with your brain. I can't relate completely to that, but I can say that when I come back from AHR, when I come back from the symposium or whatever speaking event or anything that I go to, I'm exhausted and I don't want to talk to anybody. And it's even when I come home, like I just want to sit on the couch, and my family wants my attention. They want, hey, can we go out to dinner? Can we go out to here? And it's like, I've been eating out at dinner for 4 days. Can I please just have something like some comfort food at home,
Yeah.
But I also have, it's been so many years, in existence of me doing this and running into these problems that I've started again, go back to communication. I've started to communicate these things that I thought my wife didn't need to know. Like I communicate them with her, like, hey, I'm exhausted. I'm having a shitty day, and I do that during the workday too. I call my wife. My wife and I, we used to have problems because she would go to work, I would go to work, and we would meet in the middle, right? Before we had kids, she would work nights, I would work days. We'd see each other for 2 hours in passing, and we coexisted in a house together for 2 years, right? And eventually we started talking, but even then, my wife was going through some, she has like an autoimmune disease, hypothyroidism, all this weird crap. So she was going through that. And I honestly, like, we didn't communicate. Like she went through a breakdown where she got really, really sick. And I didn't even notice, dude. I was with her in the house every day and she started getting sicker and sicker because of this hypothyroidism. She wasn't taking her medicine because she didn't like it, all this stuff. And it took my dad. So I saw her every day and it took my dad coming over who doesn't see her every day. And he looked at her and he goes, "Are you okay?" And my wife goes, "I don't feel okay." And she went to the doctor and found out she was really messed up, just like shit in her brain and, medicine and all that crap. Right. But I was with her every day and I didn't notice those things.
Well,
But I, and then she got it fixed. And then when that happened, it really changed me because I'm like, of course I love my wife. I care about her, but we were coexisting. We weren't paying attention to each other, and it come back to communication. So I didn't want to share work stress with her. I didn't want to share all this stuff because I felt like it was just going to burden her, but it was eating me inside, So going back to what I was trying to say, is communication. Now we talk about everything. I call her during the day. Whenever I get an opportunity, I call her for a 5-minute talk. Hey, can't talk long. Just wanted to check in, say, hey, I'm busy. It's going to be a late night. Okay, bye. Click. That's our conversations throughout the day because I'm super busy and I'm thankful that she's patient with that, but I try to communicate that stuff with her and we try to communicate anxieties and frustrations. And when I'm coming home from vacation, I'm going to be exhausted. I really just want to sit down and talk. Can we just stay home and then we'll go out next weekend or something, So that's how we get through it.
Well, I could see that, like not noticing things. So, my wife works out almost every day and she's like, "Oh, how's my ass look? How do my arms look?" I'm like, I don't know. But then someone else will see her that doesn't see her on the regular. Like, "Oh my God, your ass looks great." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's shit you really don't notice because you're around that person. So like, don't think you're a horrible person for not noticing. I mean, it's not like she had blood coming out of her nose. Like I'm that sick. You know what I mean? Like I understand that she was sick, but like you might have just not noticed because you see her every day.
That's the way that I think it in my head. I mean, her skin tone was changing and stuff, dude. Like she wasn't going jaundice, but her skin tone was changing and her body was changing. And it was her, she has an autoimmune disease. So it was literally her body shutting down. Her heart rate was slowing down and her blood wasn't pumping right and all this stuff. And it was just, she would tell me. And again, I feel so guilty because I was listening. I just wasn't listening because I can remember her telling me all the time, yeah, I'm exhausted. Dude, I would come home and my wife would be sleeping on the floor in the living room where the sun comes through. She'd be laying down with the cats. And I'd be like, huh, that's weird. Okay, whatever. Just going about my day. But she was vitamin D deficient. That's why she was sleeping in the sun. She was, and I feel bad, so I had to change after that. And obviously we did. But it's really easy to get caught in that trap, especially when you're super busy and running a business and, I think we just got to make priorities for that stuff. And communication is the biggest piece of advice I can give to anybody. At least that's what works for us. And that's the important thing I think to understand too. We're all different, you know, there's not one thing that works for everybody because nobody's the same. You can put a label on us. You can say that, you know, you and I both talk about this. You can say that we're autistic or whatever, but even autistic is such a vague term. I mean, and it's not this whole everybody. When we were kids, I'm sure you heard this too, right? You know, they would use the term, whatever, we're not going to go there, but they would use general terms about people's mental issues, right?
Yeah.
They're so general. I mean, those are just blanket terms. Everybody's different. You know, we all have weird quirks and features about us. And that's a Doug DeMuro reference right there for all the OG car people.
No, actually, you know what? Before my wife and I had kids, you know, we talked about if we were going to have kids, you know, and I forewarned her. I was like, I don't like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to bring children into the world only because, you know, my family history. And I told her, I was like, you know, my family's crazy. And she's like, oh, so is mine. Big Italian family, you know, we all get in fights. I was like, no, we have papers.
Yeah.
From hospitals, you know what I mean? Like, and like, she thought I was joking until she met some of them, you know what I mean? And I don't know, like there's certain things that I didn't know. Like, you know, Bill was talking about how you don't really remember a lot about, you know, older people in your family. And so, Chris, you've been around me enough where like you've seen me like start doing the eye roll. Right. I remember being in HVAC school symposium and you start just laughing, just bust. He's fucking doing it. He's doing it.
Yeah.
And I talked to my aunt because my mother's not here anymore. So if I get nostalgic for back home, I talk to her, you know, and ask her questions about my family and stuff. And I had brought up, you know, the conversation we had, you know what I mean, as far as the, you know, the eye roll thing. And I found it funny because she starts laughing. I don't get halfway into the story of what happened until the eye roll. And then she starts laughing. I'm like, what are you laughing for? She's like, your great grandfather did the same fucking thing. I was like, that's funny as hell. Like, I would never like, cause you wonder like where you get some quirks, where you get some stuff, you know what I mean?
You know, it's crazy. I found out stuff about my family that I didn't know. And dude, it unlocked like Pandora's box when you start going down that hole and you start like, I didn't know for all my life. I can remember going to the doctor and like, do you have any history of diabetes? No. Do you have any history of high blood pressure? No. You know, like, no. Check off all the boxes. I was wrong about all that stuff, but it was interesting though, because what happened is my mom had whatever issues she had. She's not here anymore either. She passed away, but she hid stuff from all of us. I mean, my mom was diabetic and not taking medicine, like
wow.
all this stuff. And my mom had a kid that she didn't tell us about. Like we found that after she passed away, like anyways, but that's a whole conversation for another day. But it's crazy to find out the history later in life that you find, you know, that you discover about your family. And it's also interesting too, like you said, the quirks. Talking to myself, I talk to myself all the time, having conversations with myself.
Yeah.
And I remember one time there was something that I did and I was having a conversation, like we were joking about it. And my dad happened to be in the room and he's like, I'm sorry. And I go, why? And he goes, because I do that. I never knew he did that, you know? And he's like, my bad. And I'm like, damn, that stuff's kind of crazy to think how it gets passed down, these little quirks that you have, you know? And
some of it's subconscious too. Like you don't even like,
no, you don't even realize you're doing
no.
it.
No, I didn't find out. I've been doing refrigeration for 20 years, right? And I literally didn't find out until about 4 years ago that I started like looking like I was having a seizure when I'm talking, because someone started laughing at me. They literally just started laughing. I'm like, "What, dude? What are you laughing at?" He's like, "No, don't worry about it." I'm like, "No, tell me." He's like, you know, I don't think you realize this, but it looks like your eyes start rolling in the back of your head when you start talking about stuff like really passionately. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, we all joke about it. I'm like, what? So I was like, I could have had shit on my face and no one's going to tell me for 14 or 16 years until now.
Now, let me ask you this, like, again, just a thought came into my head because I do something similar when I'm in a stressful situation at work, when I'm having to talk to my guys, when I'm having to, I don't know if you want to say reprimand someone, but if we're having a company meeting and I'm pissed off about something, I have to, in the past, I used to have a hard time making eye contact with people when I would do that. Like I used to, I would have to remind myself, make eye contact, make eye contact. You know, when I'm talking to my guys in specific situations when I was angry with them. Do you think that the whole rolling your eyes back in your head is like a way of you having like an imposter syndrome? Like, even though you know you're smart in that subject, are you afraid to look people in the eyes
No,
because you feel like you're not competent? Or
no, I thought about this, and I think it's the reason why I do it is because you know how like the rest of your senses are heightened. Like if
okay,
you're, you know, if you're blind, or you know, if you're deaf, you know what I mean. The
yeah,
rest of your, you know, rest of that stuff is heightened. So my thought process is, and maybe this is, you know, self-analyzing way too much, but if I'm not looking at anything, I'm straight up referencing everything that I can remember. You know what I
okay.
mean? So I don't have that additional input, like
That,
of, you know,
it makes sense.
does that? I mean, does that? Am
No,
I
it does.
talking
It
math?
actually does. It's so the way I'm understanding it is what you're thinking is that it's like your body, your brain, whatever it is, puts all the focus on this, what you're trying to say or whatever. So then these other things just kind of get shut down. You know, your eyes are just like blah, you know, whatever, because it's just kind of coming out. It makes sense. It does make sense.
Because I had a complex for it for a while. Like after someone actually told me I was doing it, like I was like staring at him while I'm talking. You know, we're doing this, we're doing. You know what I mean? Like I didn't want to like do it because I felt stupid.
It's like an overfeeding TXV. You're starving the system for liquid. It's freaking just robbing all the liquid whilst there you go.
Oh
I actually
man,
just had that problem the other day. It's like, what's going on? Is the overfeeding TXV. It's like, oh,
yeah.
it's starving this thing. But interesting. Yeah, you know, again, I can't stress enough like what's worked for me with all these weird situations, and the problems are only getting worse the older that I get. Like it's really starting to get dark, the crap that comes out of my head, dude. But the biggest thing is communication, like talking with my wife, talking with my family, even my kids, man. I'm trying to talk with my kids like, look, you guys are probably going to run into these issues. I mean, you got 50% of me in you, so you know, you probably need to know like these are the things I deal with. Maybe in your life they'll have an answer for it, but is communicating with my wife and my kids and letting them know I'm sorry. You know, having to talk to my wife the other day, we were talking about something, and I remember just telling her, like, I can't express what I'm feeling. I can't find words to explain how I feel and what I go through. I just know that I'm twisted inside and I'm really upset for whatever reason. And I'm sorry, I just can't find the words. I know there's something going on in my head, but I'm trying, you know, I'm trying to get through this. And I'm thankful that at least I can see myself, right? I can see these issues and say that's not right, even though I know it's like I'm a passenger just watching a car crash, you know, but it's like I just can't stop what's going to happen. So at least I'm just talking through it and letting her know, like communicating, hey, you know, this is just how my brain works. I'm sorry, you know.
Well, that was one of the things with my oldest that has the real bad anxiety. You know, when you're different, regardless of people being a genuinely nice human being, they're going to treat you differently. Even subconsciously, they're going to treat you differently. So when they do that, it kind of inhibits your social skills, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah.
basically, you're not, you know, if you're not in normal, you know, people are going to treat you with kid gloves, right? Kid gloves, you know, so like you're not going to get the full experience of actually being a human being and having a normal conversation because they're watching what they're doing, they're watching what they're saying around you, even subconsciously. So like her going up to Oklahoma was one of the best things for her. Like she has eyebrows for the first time in 10 years. And and I'm not saying that sounds really bad. Like she looks good and so she's doing better. No, she actually, you know, you can tell when someone's really depressed
Yeah.
and when someone is generally happy. So on top of her being generally happy now and her not pulling, and the fact that she's able to actually she's 14 and the conversations we're having now are just, oh my God, she's grown up so much. But I think part of that, and I'm segueing back, you know, back into what I originally said, where now she's getting the social skills because like this is basically where she's at. It's Yellowstone for a bunch of 14 to 18-year-old girls. So like they're in close quarters, they have a strict schedule, they're getting up, you know, taking their meds, you know, doing their hygiene. Like they have a set schedule every single day. So the fact that now she has a lot of structure and the fact that she's forced to deal with a bunch of other little girls that have, you know, the same similar issues, whether it be anxiety or depression or drugs or whatever the hell it is that they're up there for. You know what I mean? It's so much like she's so different. And like you could tell that she's like, she's been getting day passes where I'll drive up to Oklahoma, we'll hang out for 12 hours and I take her back. And she's just like, she's growing up so much just in that little bit of time that she's been up there. Like, cause now she's finally getting those social skills to deal with it. Cause before, like you said before, when you have anxiety and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to deal with it. You know what I mean? And that's how she would get. And her response was, I'm going to pull my hair because that's the only thing that I can fucking control. Right. It's a control thing. Like I can control like the pain. I can control me pulling my hair out, where now she's learning the skills to deal with this anxiety. So she's a better human being for it. You know what I mean? She's able to deal. Like she ended up losing a level because she screwed up. She did something stupid she wasn't supposed to do. And normally it would be blame you, blame you, blame you. It's everyone else's fault. I didn't do anything. And she's like, Dad, I'm really sorry that I self-sabotaged. And I think her being able to talk to other people and being able to explain, like, even with the anxiety, like at one point you didn't know what it was. You thought your stomach was just fucked up, right? Now you understand when my stomach feels like this, I know I'm screwed up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I think another realization that I came to for me is that I am, and I know that everybody's got to be different, but I am really good at keeping my cool when I'm not around my loved ones. If I have anxiety and stuff, if I'm at work and I'm stressed because I'm trying to fix something and I can't figure it out, I'm good under pressure, especially around customers. I can keep my cool all day long. It's when I go home and I relax around my family that I lose my shit. And that's where I have to remember. And when I say I lose my shit, that's just when the anxiety builds or I shut down, or, the moment that you have to shut down and you're like, I just got to go, when we're out in a public situation. I tend to do that in a way, not as extreme, but when I get home. So when I get home and I sit down and I relax, that's when it really starts to twist up inside. So my adrenaline pumping and everything gets me through the day. But when I get home is when it's just like, okay, I shut down or I can't talk, or in the past, I used to have anger issues. Right. And it all stemmed back to mommy issues and anxiety and stuff. But and I saw a doctor and all that stuff and went through the whole medication thing and it worked for me, so I'm not knocking anything, but that's when I would snap and I punched a hole in the wall, and then my wife came home one day and she's like, why is there a hole in the wall? And I'm like, oh yeah, I got mad and I punched a hole in the wall, and she's like, and the look of horror on her face, she wasn't afraid I was going to hit her. She was just like, where did this come from? Because again, I wasn't communicating at that time, so it for me, the realization with everything is talk to your loved ones, talk to your spouse, and try to remember that, yeah, you're comfortable around them, but you can't shut down. You can't ignore them. You have to communicate with them. That's what works for me, is communication and letting them know, like, hey, I'm going through something right now. And I feel bad for my kids, because I don't want them to have to go through this stuff too. But I mean, there's nothing I can do about that, except for try to be a good parent, try to talk them through this and communicate with them and let them know, don't be afraid to talk to people about this.
Well, and about the communication part, right? Like if you communicate to your partner, they'll know from there on out, like what's potentially going on with you. This is a prime example. So I haven't talked to my father in probably, I think, 5 years. I offered to buy him and his fifth wife a plane ticket to come see me and his only kids, or his only grandkids. And he was like, oh, if I have to get on an airplane, I can take off my knife off my belt. I ain't getting no goddamn airplane.
It's
fine.
Okay. So those thoughts, and again, I was going to say, I know people like that, and I don't want to categorize them as one of those people, but I can relate to what you're saying about him, because I've had encounters with similar people that are very stubborn. Now, do you think, and I don't mean to interrupt you here, but do you think it's just the fact that he's stubborn, or do you think he's afraid for whatever reason to go somewhere? Do you think he's afraid to be around you, so he's making excuses?
No, he's just an asshole.
Yeah, I would question whether or not it's like an insecurity. Like,
I mean, the dude's bipolar. He's been
that makes sense. Yeah.
In and out of facilities my whole lifetime. you know, I told you some of the stuff that's happened, you know, when I was
Yeah.
younger, and yeah, man, like I was mad. So I was just like, you know what, and I was going to pay for the damn ticket. So it's not like he was going to have to do anything. I was like, all right, well, if you don't want to do that, then take a bus. If you want to bus out down to Texas from whatever, you know, like whatever. So I basically wrote him off. And like, so the other night he had texted me out of the blue. I look back, like literally it's been 5 years. And he texted me, he's like, your grandma had a heart attack. She has surgery tomorrow.
That's
Okay.
it.
And then because I didn't respond, he fucking called me like for the first time. I was like, so it takes someone almost dying for you to fucking reach out? Like I was pissed. And
Yeah.
I was at first I was a little upset about my grandmother. But then second off, I was just more mad. I was like, that's what he's gonna wait for. You know what I mean? And I was just I like my wife heard my phone, you know, she already knew that my dad texted me. And then when I got that phone call and she heard, she's like, I wasn't going to touch you. I wasn't going to talk to you. She's like, I already knew that you were just pissed off. And I knew that if I tried to, you know, you just needed the process, you know what I mean? And sometimes that's what it takes. You know what I mean? The communication to, you know, with your partner to know, like, you know, this is how things affect me. And this is usually how I react.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And them knowing that, you know, makes, you know, not that it's great, you know, that you're not communicating at that point, but at least she knows that it's not her or it's not the kids. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
And
And yeah, totally. The communication thing, you know, similar story. My little brother was innocent. He was like 13 years old. And long story short, I didn't live with that side of the family. He lived with my grandparents and my mom and all this stuff. And my mom kept telling him, I can't drive anymore because I don't have a driver's license, because I don't have the money to go to the DMV. Like these were the things she was telling my brother. So my brother decided, hey, I'm going to be a good kid. And because my brother was really good on a computer, and he's like, I'm going to make mom an appointment at the DMV so she can get her license, you know? So brother made her an appointment. And then when my mom came home that day, he's like, Mom, I made you an appointment at the DMV so you can get your driver's license. And my mom went Richter on him, like snapped. And my brother's like, I don't understand. Like, and he's telling me this story 5 years later, because he never told me this. And he's telling me like, it all makes sense. And what happened was both of us at different times in our lives thought our mom was hiding from something. Like, because there was weird things that she would do, like she was hiding from something, to the point that I was like 17 and I paid to run a background check on her, because I'm like, what the hell is she hiding from? Right? There's nothing there, a bunch of little crap. Again, I mentioned something earlier. We found out I had a sister. In my mom's mind, again, she's not around anymore, so this is the best we can make sense of it. In my mom's mind, she hid the fact that she had a kid, and we think that she was paranoid, thinking that kid was going to come look for her and everybody was going to expose her and know that she had a kid that nobody like. And it all came down to communication, right? Had she just told people like, hey, I had a kid and I gave it up for adoption, everybody would have been fine with that. But in her mind, she hid that shit from everybody. So the reason why I told that story was there's weird shit going on in people's heads. And I would say that maybe there's something going on in your dad that, you know, for whatever reason, like he feels like he needs to hide something, or he feels like he needs to put up a front for whatever reason. We all have weird shit going on in our heads.
So I grew up in a really small town, and one of the things that is, you know, that happens, like I'll get nostalgic for home, like, right. So I lost my mom when I was 25. You know, my story is that, you know, I moved out of my house when I was 16, lived in my car for a little bit, went to college, whatever. And then started talking to my mom when I got older. And then we got a really good relationship. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden she died. So like I get nostalgic for home sometimes. So I started talking, you know, to my aunt and, you know, some other relatives that I do still talk to. And like, but then when I go back home, when I go back to Pennsylvania, like, I'm like, how is everything going? And everyone is usually like, well, it's all right. And you know, they start complaining. And like, I don't have the patience for that anymore. Like you're allowed, you know, and I'm not saying you're not allowed, but like not every single correspondence that you have always has to be negative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if it is, fucking change it. Like you know, otherwise I would be the same. I'd be playing Groundhog's Day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have a wonderful career. I have a wonderful, you know, a great podcast is going well. You know what I mean? Like everything in my career, my family is great. I mean, everyone's got problems, but I mean, everything is really, really good. But then I feel like I don't want to say anything. Like, I don't want to say anything because then I'm like, oh, I'm doing really good. What the fuck? You know what I mean? But like, I
Yeah.
just can't, I've cut trips short. Like I was in Pennsylvania and I was just like, I was like, I need to go home. I need to get out of here. I can't take the negativity. And
Yeah. I think that another thing too, and I just thought of a point, here I am analyzing your dad, right? Here I am analyzing my mom. Like it's really easy for me to armchair quarterback this from an outside perspective. But again, when we started this conversation and you and I were talking about anxiety, I said that, or I don't know if I said this, but nobody's going to change my mind, because the way that my anxiety works and everything in here, you can all be telling me all kinds of things that could fix my problems, but it doesn't fix me because my brain is doing my thing. So for me to analyze my mom, for me to analyze what I think is going on with your dad, right, or whatever, is just me talking through things. But it's also, I need to remember that when people try to give me advice, I don't want to fucking hear it, because I'm twisted up. You're not going to help me. I'm overthinking everything. I know how this is going to go. So we all have our own weird crap, and I'm not going to change you. You're not going to change me. You may say something that makes me think about something, but I think the best way for me, what works for me, is I need to change the next generation. I need to change my kids. I need to let my kids know, don't hide this shit. Don't bottle this shit up. Don't think that you can't talk to anybody. Don't be afraid. Like, oh my gosh, one of the best pieces of advice, and I know my kids aren't going to listen. When my daughter went into high school, as I said, you're going there to learn. Fuck everybody else. Don't give a fuck what people think in high school, right? Because I remember in high school, I was a lonely, quiet kid that, felt like I didn't want to talk to anybody because I was afraid to talk. Like, fuck them all. I wish I would have enjoyed high school, but it's like I didn't. So I'm trying to help my kids. I'm trying to help my kids to empower them, to make them stronger. Because we can work through issues and I can slowly better myself. But if I can better my kids now when they're young and mold them and make them be those confident kids that don't give a fuck what other people think, as long as they're still nice people. I don't want them to be a jerk, but just still being nice people. I think that's the best way to go about this.
So I had passed along this information to my daughter, to my oldest, who's having the issues. And I said to her, I was like, this is something I didn't tell her where I learned it from. So when I was, I think 4 or 5, my dad, one of the times, tried committing suicide. And I had asked her, I was like, why is dad hurting himself? And, her response to me, being 4 or 5, however old I was like, when you bottle things up and you keep them down inside, they explode. And when they explode, they don't do good things for yourself.
And people get hurt.
Yes. So the advice from her to me was never bottle anything up. And so my whole life, when I talk to anyone, I mean, I'm open. Like, I'm going to tell you, if I scare you off or not, I'm going to tell you everything that's going on with me. You know what I mean? And that's the way I deal with things. Like this podcast right here is so therapeutic for me, because I'm able just to talk freely, and I just don't care. There's no sponsors. There's nothing like that. I can talk straight up off the cuff. And so I'm trying to instill that in my daughter to help her with the issues that she has, so she doesn't bottle it up. And I think that's part of the reason why, because, like you said before, you didn't know how to express your anxiety. Same thing with her. Imagine being 14 and not knowing how to express it.
No. And all the hormones and emotions, and you're, oh my gosh, dude. Like, see, at 14, I was bottling all that up. I was hiding all of that.
Yeah.
I was not telling anybody that, all these issues. I was hiding a lot of stuff at 14. And oh man, that's just such a crazy time.
Especially now with social media and shit. Like kids, like 14-year-old girls are awful.
Oh my gosh,
on the scale of awful human beings, like they're malicious, and they will tear you apart.
And it's interesting too, because kids are so, especially girls, right? Boys too, but boys are more like, I'm just going to go punch them in the face and move on with it. And they become best friends for the rest of their life. Right. But girls, like, we're generalizing them, but at least in my daughter's case, like they take that shit to heart. And if someone says something, like, it bothers them and it eats them alive, and then you have the relenting social media that just fucking keeps going and going, and people, you know, saying, oh, you know, her hair's silly, you know, or her hair is stupid or whatever, and it just fucks with their heads. We feel like, I mean, in a way, we kind of felt like bad parents, but good parents at the same time, because we didn't let my oldest daughter have social media for the longest time until she was old enough. Now she's 16. I'm like, all right, you could do your thing now. You're an adult, or not an adult, but you know, she's a teenager, and you know, we're letting her make those decisions. And even my 13-year-old, we're slowly starting to let her do things. But yeah, for the longest time, we were like, no social media. You know, we gave her social media before TikTok was TikTok. It was called Musically. And she had Musically, and then she posted something, and she got like a weird ass comment on there, and it was like some dude or something, and we're like, yep, nope, that's it, you know, eliminated that and deleted it. And she was mad because we took social media away from her, you know, but we were being what we consider to be good parents. We were like, you know, we gotta be careful with this crap.
I'm kind of protective when it comes to, like, you know, phone stuff. So I'm not proud to say this, and you know, but I check her messages to see what the hell's going on.
Oh, there's nothing, dude. There's nothing. I firmly stand strong with that one. That is your child, dude. Nothing wrong with checking their messages.
Yeah. So I found a dick pic.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty fucking twisted, you know?
Yep. Yeah. So you know what I did?
What's that?
Oh, I was texting the boy and said, I really need to talk to you. I really need to talk to you. And then please FaceTime me. And then he FaceTimed me. And then I scared the shit out of him.
There you go. You know, like, at first, when we first started doing that, like, the rule in our house was you can have a cell phone, but it at the end of the night, it goes in mom and dad's room. Right. So the cell phones would go in mom and dad's room. And what my wife did when we did let my daughter eventually have social media at about 15, I think, maybe 14, but I think it was 15, was my wife installed the same with the credentials on her phone too. So my wife would open up, I think the first one that my daughter got was Instagram, and my wife would see the messages, like, because it was on her phone too. So she would read through them every day, and then she would go talk to my daughter. That's not okay. Like, you need to talk to that person. You need to. So as parents, I feel like we need to be a little more controlling when it comes to that kind of stuff. Now, you know, our kids can still have opinions. Like, we weren't reprimanding my daughter because she had like a silly conversation or she was angry with someone. It was just when we saw conversations going in a dark path. Now, the other thing we did with our daughter, and we do with our youngest daughter, is we tell them from the beginning, look, if you see something, if your friends say something to you, if it at all seems like there might be something going on in their lives, like, we make sure that our kids understand, you have to tell us. Like, I don't care what your opinions are. If you feel like you're betraying your friend, if you hear that your friend says that her dad hits her, like, you tell us. That is, and we ingrained that into them. Like, there's no secrets. And even if you feel like you're doing your friend a disservice, you're not. You're helping your friend by telling us, because we will deal with that. Because the last thing we want to hear about is one of our kids' friends doing something bad to themselves or something like that. So, you know, no, I firmly stand strong that there is no, when your child is young, you need to be in their lives. You need to be, especially with social media, man, you need to be reading that crap. There's no privacy when you're freaking 16. That, you know,
and once, like, if you do something stupid, like sharing pictures of yourself, you know, like some of these kids are doing,
yeah,
they do not realize that shit is out there forever.
Never. And now, I mean, forever and a day, because now whenever anybody sees anything on social media, they screenshot it. And throw it into an archive, you know, so that they can throw it out to you later. That's become political. That's become everything. Is anything cool, they screenshot it, you know, and then throw it in their hard drive. And it's like, who's going to find that 10 years from now, you know? And
I have to ask you this question, because I think one of the other reasons why I'm a cool dad is because I'm on YouTube. And on social media. Like my 11-year-old thinks it's the coolest fucking thing.
Okay.
My 14-year-old, she's above that point. But like your younger daughter, does she react the same way with you being on social media and all this other stuff?
My younger daughter is more, I don't know what the right word is she's more enamored in it, right? She's more like impressed with it, or at least she makes it
That's
known.
what I
I
mean.
think my older daughter appreciates and respects the fact and is thankful. Like she's a
Mhm.
smart kid, but
Mhm.
my kids are both different in their personalities. So my younger daughter's more of a, hey dad, like when I asked her if she wanted to help me edit videos, that was like, really? You know, and I was like, oh yeah, and I'll pay you. Really? Like she was all excited about it, right?
Slave wage.
Yeah, so yeah, my younger daughter is super interested and excited and more vocally proud of the whole social media thing. My older daughter's like, like my older daughter made a joke that she mentioned to someone that I do stuff on YouTube, and like her friends were like, what's the name of his YouTube account? And my daughter didn't want to tell her. She's to tell him, she was like, I don't, no, you don't need to know. And then they all found out, and it's not
And
that
then
big of a deal.
and then they find the overtime show.
Yeah.
Dad's an
but
asshole.
but you know what, man? Like the overtime show is therapeutic for me, right? Because it's not that I'm fake on my channel. It's not that I'm fake on my content, but
Yeah.
I am more censored. I'm PG on my content. And I don't want to say that's not me, but I know that there's an audience. And when I started getting comments from kids and stuff watching my videos, like I felt kind of a duty to be a little more censored on my platform.
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck about sponsors. I mean, I appreciate and I'm thankful for my sponsors and the people that I work with, but they don't control me. So I don't give a fuck about that. That's not why I'm censored. I'm censored because I'm trying to be respectful to kids and, people that want to learn or whatever and I don't even consider my content to be amazing because I don't see it that way. I just think the way I view my content is just a look into how my brain works. It may be right or wrong. This is how I analyze things, but, the overtime show is more of, it's like going to the bar on a Friday night. This is what I would do with my friends. Yeah, I say stupid shit, but that's real. If you don't like me because of something that I said on the overtime, then we probably really can't be friends in real life. I mean, it's easy as that, So that's a therapeutic thing for me for sure.
Yeah. No, and that's what's I don't know. I was just curious because I was having that conversation with my 11-year-old, so I didn't know how if your kids reacted basically the same way. You know what I mean? It seems like if they're younger, they're more, oh my god, he's on YouTube, that's awesome, But like if they're older, it's like,
I will say though that my older daughter has learned to appreciate the fact because she's doing like a film class in school or like a club or something, right? Because she's in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And when I told her, I was like, she's like, yeah, we need this camera, we need this lens, for this. And I was like, all right, I'll order it for you. She's like, really? And I go, yeah, like, no problem. Or I got that in my drawer over here. You want it? Here, you can have it, And she's like, really? So she appreciates the fact that when it comes to film stuff or cameras or editing softwares, I'm like, oh yeah, you can have that. No problem. Here you go. So like, I'm totally open to giving her that stuff but I'm also the type of parent, and I want to ask you this. I want to empower my kids. So I don't mind spending a couple $100 on a lens for a camera because it's an interest of my kids and it's not a fucking video game. So if I can spend money on a lens and it gives them a skill, even if they're not going to use it for the rest of their life, it just gives them something that they have in their head and it's something real. I don't mind spending money on that stuff because again, I'm trying to mold my kids. My life is about my kids. My wife is my number one because I love her, but my kids, like and I've told my wife this too, like they are above my wife. And my wife, I think, feels the same way too, because that's, I guess I shouldn't have said she's my number one. I don't know if I can explain that right. But my kids, like when we had kids, my whole life changed. And
so Jill, if you're listening, don't go on a cruise because now you're number two, just in case something were to happen.
But I would fully expect her to make me her number two also.
No, I get it.
Yeah. I mean, I had one of the weirdest conversations in my life having to have with my kids as they start staying home alone. And I was like, look, you two, you worry about you. Don't give a fuck about anybody else. Like something happens at the house, you two get the fuck out of the house. Forget the animals, forget mom and dad, whatever. You guys get you. But my responsibility is I'm going to help everybody get out of the house. And I don't give a shit about myself. Like it's just about my kids, but they are my priority. So if I can give them something that's going to help them be a better person, I'm going to bend over backwards to do that for them is what I'm going to try to do.
Well, Chris, I want to thank you for coming on, man. We're
Yeah.
almost hit that hour mark, and I know we were all over the place like usual, so I apologize. But you know, we wanted to talk about, you know, different ways that maybe we deal with depression and anxiety, and maybe this was helpful for you guys. You know, like I said, I find this therapeutic for myself because, you know, it makes me feel better just to talk about it instead of, you know, like my mom used to say, you know, bottle that shit up, you know.
I appreciate you having me on. And I think that these conversations are the best conversations to have. I feel like we started with the topic. We had an idea that we wanted to talk about anxiety and stuff. And I think that all of this was relevant to that because it's more or less not us saying this is anxiety, this is how you deal with it. It's this is how our mind processes these things. This is where we go when we're thinking about anxiety. And the fact that you and I are both similar in the way that we're fucking, hey, a squirrel, hey, this, hey, that. I mean, that's who we are, bro. Like, you know?
Well, and that's the thing. Like, if we're able to help at least one person, like, kind of internalize and be like, well, that's, you know, maybe that's why I do that thing. You know what I mean? Like I like maybe someone out there that's actually listening is like, you know, I have anxiety for that reason, and I didn't know that, but now I do. Like, you know, I mean, that's all we're trying to do, man. We're trying to help because, like I said, this trade is stressful enough just doing your job, but like dealing with the hours and everything else, man. Like, you know, we need an outlet. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, there's a lot of cats that just don't want to talk about this stuff. You know, they're afraid to open up for fear of whatever. And, you know, that was one of the things that why we did this is, you know, we wanted to make sure that, you know, you guys do have an outlet, you know, so if you guys are dealing with some shit, you know, we want to hear about it because, you know, we can talk about it and try to figure some stuff out.
For sure.
But,
Well, right on, man. Well, this is a good time. Hope to do it again sometime.
all right, guys. Thanks for watching.